Ryan never believed that forgetting someone could become harder with time. People always said the opposite. Time heals everything. You'll move on. Eventually you'll stop thinking about them. He believed those words because they sounded comforting. Until he met Emma. When they first became friends, nothing seemed unusual. They laughed together after work, shared playlists, argued about movies. Sometimes they stayed at the same cafe until it closed because neither of them wanted the conversation to end. Neither one called it love. Neither one admitted anything. Life simply felt lighter whenever the other person was around. Then, unexpectedly, everything changed. Emma accepted a new job in another city. It wasn't very far away, only a few hours by train. But it was far enough to completely change their daily routine. The morning messages slowly disappeared. Coffee became a memory. Their conversations became less frequent. At first, Emma told herself it didn't matter. People get busy. So do I. This is normal. She threw herself into work. She met new colleagues, explored new streets, decorated her apartment. Her schedule became so full that she barely had time to think. Or so she believed. One Friday afternoon, while walking home, she passed a small bookstore. In the window sat a novel Ryan had recommended months earlier. Without thinking, she smiled. Then she stopped walking. Why did that remind me of him? She hadn't spoken to Ryan for almost 2 weeks. Yet a single book instantly brought him back into her mind. She continued walking, but something inside her had quietly changed. Psychologists often describe memory as being closely connected to emotion. We don't always remember the biggest moments. We remember the moments that carried emotional meaning. A song, a smell, a favorite cafe, a familiar street. These small things become invisible bridges leading back to someone we once cared about. At first, Emma dismissed it as coincidence. The next day, she heard an old song playing in a supermarket. It was the same song Ryan used to hum while driving. Again, she smiled. Again, she thought about him. Now she began asking herself a question she hadn't considered before. Why does everything remind me of him? She tried ignoring it. For a while, it worked. Then came Sunday. Sunday had always been their coffee day. Without realizing it, Emma woke up earlier than usual. She got dressed, picked up her keys, walked halfway toward the coffee shop near her apartment. Then suddenly stopped. I'm not meeting anyone today. She laughed quietly at herself. Her body had followed an old habit before her mind caught up. That frightened her, because habits only become automatic after repeated emotional experiences. Ryan had become part of her routine. Not because they planned it. Because spending time together had slowly become normal. Now his absence felt strangely noticeable. The first moment a woman realizes she can't forget you often arrives when ordinary life begins reminding her of you without permission. Not dramatic memories. Ordinary ones. The coffee you always ordered. The joke only the two of you understood. The park bench where you once sat. The movie you never finished watching together. These ordinary details suddenly become emotionally significant. Emma tried focusing on work again. But something strange kept happening. Whenever she achieved something exciting, Ryan was the first person she wanted to tell. One afternoon she received praise from her manager for completing an important project. Everyone congratulated her. She smiled politely, then instinctively reached for her phone. Her thumb hovered over Ryan's name. She stopped. We haven't talked in weeks. Slowly she locked her phone again. Why had she wanted to tell him first? The answer wasn't complicated. Because emotionally important people become the people whose opinions matter most. Success feels better when shared with someone who genuinely understands you. A few days later, Emma met her friend Chloe for dinner. Halfway through the meal, Chloe suddenly asked, "Can I ask you something?" Emma nodded. "Do you miss him?" Emma looked confused. "Who?" "Ryan." Emma immediately laughed. "No." Too quickly. Too confidently. Chloe smiled. "You answered before I even finished asking." Emma stayed quiet. Then Chloe continued. "You mention him almost every time we meet." "I do not." "You do. You'll say things like, Ryan would have laughed at this. Ryan loves places like this. Ryan once told me, you don't even notice anymore." Emma stared at her coffee. She hadn't realized it, because mentioning Ryan had become natural. The people who leave lasting emotional impressions quietly become part of our everyday conversations. Not intentionally, automatically. That evening, Emma replayed Chloe's words over and over again. Do I really talk about him that much? The answer made her uncomfortable. Yes, she did, but she still refused to admit what it meant. Instead, she convinced herself she simply missed having a close friend. Nothing more. A week later, something happened that challenged that explanation. Emma met someone new. His name was Alex. He was kind, funny, successful. Their first conversation lasted almost 2 hours. Her friends immediately noticed the chemistry. Afterward, Chloe smiled. So, Emma shrugged. He's nice. Will you see him again? Maybe. She genuinely wanted to, yet something felt strangely incomplete. During dinner with Alex, she caught herself comparing little things. Ryan would have made a joke there. Ryan would have noticed that detail. Ryan would have ordered that dessert. She wasn't trying to compare them. Her mind simply did it on its own. That's when comparison becomes important. We naturally compare new experiences with emotionally meaningful memories. Not because we're refusing to move forward. Because our heart still uses the past as its emotional reference point. Emma began feeling frustrated. Why can't I stop doing this? The answer slowly became impossible to ignore. Because Ryan hadn't disappeared emotionally. Only physically. One rainy evening, Emma accidentally found an old voice message Ryan had sent months earlier. It wasn't romantic. He had simply been laughing after making a terrible joke. She almost deleted it. Instead, she pressed play. The sound of his laughter instantly filled the room. Suddenly her apartment didn't feel so quiet anymore. She listened again, then again. Finally she placed the phone face down on the table. Her eyes filled with tears before she even realized she was crying. Not because she was lonely. Because hearing his voice reminded her how much she missed the way he made her feel. People often think they miss a person. Sometimes, what they truly miss is the version of themselves that existed when that person was around. Ryan made ordinary days feel lighter. Conversations easier. Silence more comfortable. His absence wasn't just the absence of one individual. It was the absence of an emotional feeling she hadn't found anywhere else. That realization stayed with Emma for days. One quiet Saturday morning, she stood outside a small bakery. The smell of fresh cinnamon rolls drifted through the air. Ryan always bought one. Without thinking, she walked inside. She ordered two. The cashier smiled. Someone joining you? Emma looked at the second pastry in silence. For a few seconds, she couldn't answer. Because deep inside, a small part of her had still imagined Ryan sitting across the table. She quietly asked the cashier to remove the second one. As she walked away, she whispered something to herself she had been trying to avoid for weeks. I still haven't forgotten him. For the first time, she wasn't denying it anymore. Emma stood outside the bakery for a long moment, holding a single paper bag in her hands. Only a few seconds earlier, she had almost ordered 2 cinnamon rolls without thinking. Not because she expected Ryan to appear. Because somewhere deep inside her heart, she still imagined him beside her. That small moment stayed with her for the rest of the day. Sometimes the heart realizes the truth long before the mind is willing to admit it. That evening, she sat near the window watching the rain fall against the glass. The apartment was completely silent. For weeks she had tried filling every empty moment with work, music, television, and endless scrolling through social media. Tonight none of it worked. The silence kept bringing her back to the same person. Ryan. She finally whispered the words she had been avoiding. I miss him. Saying it out loud felt strangely painful. Yet it also felt honest. For the first time in months, she stopped fighting her own emotions. She simply accepted them. The following Monday, Emma received an unexpected message from Chloe. I'm cleaning my apartment. I found something that belongs to you. Emma visited after work. While searching through a small box of old belongings, she noticed a group photo taken almost a year earlier. There were 6 people standing together. Everyone was smiling, but Emma wasn't looking at the group. Her eyes immediately found Ryan. Without realizing it, she smiled. Chloe quietly noticed. You still look for him first. Emma slowly lowered the picture. I guess I do. Chloe asked gently. Have you ever wondered why? Emma nodded. Every day. Then maybe you already know the answer. On the way home, Emma couldn't stop thinking. Why did every happy memory somehow lead back to Ryan? Why did every achievement feel incomplete without sharing it with him? Why did every quiet evening make her wonder what he was doing? Those questions no longer frightened her. They simply made her honest. Several days later, Emma decided to organize her apartment. She opened a drawer she hadn't touched in months. Inside was a small movie ticket. It had almost no value. Except, it was from the night Ryan convinced her to watch a movie she was certain she'd hate. She laughed when she remembered how wrong she had been. Then another memory appeared. The way he laughed when she spilled popcorn. The way he insisted on walking her home because it was raining. The way he said goodbye as if he'd see her again the next morning. Memories never arrive alone. One meaningful memory quietly invites another. Soon, Emma found herself sitting on the floor surrounded by ordinary objects that suddenly felt extraordinary. A receipt, a train ticket, an old photograph, a coffee loyalty card. None of them were important. Yet together, they told the story of a connection she had underestimated while living it. That's another moment a woman realizes she can't forget you. She discovers that the smallest objects carry the biggest emotions. Not because of what they are, but because of who they remind her of. One Friday evening, Emma received an invitation from Alex. Would you like to have dinner tomorrow? She looked at the message for several minutes. Alex had done nothing wrong. He was thoughtful, respectful, easy to talk to. Months earlier, she would have immediately accepted. Instead, she realized something unexpected. She wasn't emotionally available, not because she wanted Ryan back at any cost. Because part of her heart still belonged to the memories they had created together. She politely declined the invitation. Not out of guilt, out of honesty. It wouldn't be fair to begin something new while her heart was still quietly holding onto someone else. The following week, something completely unexpected happened. Emma's phone rang. The screen displayed a familiar name. Ryan. For a second, she simply stared at it. Her heart began beating faster. She answered. Hello. There was a short silence. Then Ryan laughed softly. I was starting to think you forgot about me. Emma smiled without realizing it. I could never forget you. The words escaped before she had time to stop them. Silence filled the call again. This time it felt different. Not awkward. Honest. Ryan spoke first. I've wanted to call for weeks. Then why didn't you? I wasn't sure if you wanted to hear from me. Emma looked out the window. I was waiting for you. Neither of them had planned that conversation. Neither of them had rehearsed it. Sometimes truth arrives naturally when two people finally stop pretending. Over the next hour, they talked about everything. Work, life, family, the city, the little things they had both missed. When the conversation finally ended, Emma realized she had been smiling the entire time. Not because every problem had disappeared, because she finally understood something important. She hadn't been unable to move on because she was weak. She hadn't been remembering Ryan because she refused to let go. She remembered him because what they shared had been real. Real connections don't disappear simply because time passes. Of course, not every story ends with a phone call. Sometimes two people never meet again. Sometimes life takes different paths. And that's okay. The lesson isn't that everyone should wait forever. The lesson is understanding your own heart before trying to replace what it truly values. If someone keeps returning to your thoughts, if ordinary moments continue reminding you of them, if your happiest news still feels incomplete without telling them, it may be your heart asking you to acknowledge something you've been trying to ignore. At the same time, it's important to remember that thinking about someone doesn't always mean you're meant to be together. Sometimes memories stay because they helped shape who you became. Sometimes they stay because there are still emotions that need time to heal. The important thing is not to confuse memories with destiny. Instead, pay attention to the patterns. Do you miss the person? Or only the feeling they gave you? Do you want them back? Or do you simply miss the chapter of life they represent? Emma eventually found her answer. She didn't just miss the past. She missed Ryan, not because he was perfect, but because with him, she had felt understood, safe, accepted, and completely herself. That's the moment she realized she couldn't forget him. Not when she cried, not when she looked at old photographs, not when she heard his favorite song, But when she finally stopped lying to herself. Because the hardest truth isn't admitting that someone still crosses your mind. The hardest truth is admitting they never really left your heart in the first place.